Hey everyone, welcome to AI Insights with me, Jonathan Blabber, Head of AI Practice for Eden Smith. I've created this podcast to get insights from some of the most well-respected thought leaders within the AI industry, just to capture what's going on currently and in the future for AI as we adopt AI into this world. Our next guest is a very well-respected thought leader within the AI space, known for digging deep into AI transformation strategies for, let's face it, one of the most well-known brands in technology for decades. Please welcome Luca Cassani, Director of Technical Strategy for Microsoft. Welcome, Luca.
Hello, welcome everyone, and thanks, Jonathan, for inviting me. Really
Uh,
excited and looking forward to this chat.
It's my pleasure, and just an intro and how we know each other. We don't really. I mean, we met a few weeks ago online, and Luca kindly shared some time with me on his insights on AI, where we are right now and where we are in the future. Obviously, for me, I'm interested to find out where the skill gaps are and how we can upskill current employees within businesses, but also how we can identify where the skills lie in the future. So it was very well appreciated, Luca. I guess a great place to start is how did you get where you are? I mean, obviously Microsoft being such a well-known brand, a short intro on you would be great to start.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. As you said, I'm the Director for Technology Strategy at Microsoft, taking care of the relationship with Vodafone Group, which is one of our largest global accounts. My job is basically to advise Vodafone and coordinate a team of specialists on how the Microsoft technology aligns with the business objectives of Vodafone specifically. And of course, in the last couple of years, AI has become sort of the transformation engine or the transformation platform. So a lot of what I do recently is focused on AI. I would say my job is somehow this connection point between business and technology. I am a technology enthusiast. I have if you want, a non-linear background for someone working in tech in a technology-related role. I've been at Microsoft 9 years, which is already a lot. Joined at the beginning of the Satya Nadella's era as CEO. Changed a few industry. I'm Italian and started out of the Italian subsidiary working with public sector entities and citizen services, and then moved to the UK, engineering, construction, infrastructure, and then finally Vodafone. How did I get here? I'm actually not a computer scientist. I'm an engineer, but I studied aerospace engineering. Back in the days, for me, it was all about racing cars and fighter jets and rockets. That was sort of like my nerd side. But I've always been fascinated by technology in general. So always a technology enthusiast. At engineering school, I was quite a geek on everything to do with simulations. So the computer science angle came in from there. Spent a bit of time in proper industry. I was in manufacturing, eventually in the supply chain of the automotive sector. And then I decided to take a break. Just looking for career opportunity and growth, invested on myself, did an MBA, and that was the platform that allowed me to transition into industry. Came into Microsoft at a time when, as I said, Satya was 1 year at the helm. He was transitioning everything to what at the time was the cloud first, mobile first strategy. So there was quite a lot of healthy turnaround at Microsoft, and a lot of hiring of fresh minds, if you want, that were having a different point of view. I mean, it's what I used to say when I was at engineering school. Funnily enough, I studied at the engineering school of Milan. I came into the world of work without ever having used a Microsoft product in my life. My
Are you allowed
my
to say
thesis,
that?
yeah. So who would have ever thought my thesis was actually I was required to write it in open source tooling. So LaTeX was my editor of choice. We were using Linux everywhere, and I was pretty much writing every single bit of software I needed to use rather than using commercial software. So yeah, that's my story. Grew up with I wouldn't say Microsoft is evil, but fundamentally in a faculty where everyone was encouraging open source. Then of course you come into the world of work, you start using the classic office stuff. And then I remember one day I was actually preparing for my for the business school, and I was just doing readings and stuff, and I bump into this interview. It was actually the interview. It's on it's on YouTube, of Satya Nadella becoming CEO and addressing at the first town hall together with Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer. And I was like, oh, actually, this guy has something to say interesting. And that's how Microsoft got onto the map for me, because otherwise before it was just yeah, I knew who they were, but very distant sort of partner.
Sure. So was your dream then, when you were studying and things, did you ever think about like, right, oh, okay, the interest in cars and engineering, Formula One, right? That's at the
Yeah,
heart of Italy,
yeah,
Ferrari being the team principal, maybe. I don't know.
yeah.
You could have gone that
Yeah, maybe.
path.
Yeah, and I
Awesome.
don't know. I mean, yeah, sure, there was some of that. I think, I mean, if you go even back before that, the childhood dreams of being a pilot somehow is what inspired all the all the journey. But yeah, I think when I got in, it was like either motor racing, and clearly in Italy, Formula One is a predominant thing. Actually, a few classmates ended up between Ferrari and what at the time was, I think Toro Rosso is now whatever name it now
Yeah.
has. A few moved
Yeah.
to the UK, so a few are now still at the various McLaren, Aston Martin, and so on. Um, and at the end of the day, military industry. In fact, my first ever interview was for a company, one of the major helicopter manufacturer, which is actually a merger between a British company and an Italian one. Is Augusta Westland is now a division of Leonardo. Um, didn't happen because they were under a hiring freeze.
Ah.
So it was sort of like they were preparing for coming out of hiring freeze. I was a little bit impatient, and so I ended up taking a turn into getting into the automotive sector. But yeah, I don't think I really had. I did. It's strange because it's sort of like, yes, you may have. I think I'm more a person of passion, like what gives me energy and what keeps you engaged, rather than a planner. I don't know. I've never been one who has all the steps figured out. I'm gonna be CEO in the next 15 years, and these are all the 5 jobs or 20 jobs I'm gonna take to get there. I'm like, I don't know. I just get excited by things. I started by when I was a kid, I would always take things apart and put them back together, from coffee machines to pens. Pens pens have a spring, right? I would
Yeah,
always lose
yeah.
springs because I was taking them apart and then losing parts. So for the joy of my mom that I needed to
Go
buy.
through
Yeah,
boxes of pens. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Oh dear. But you're in such an interesting space right now. AI is definitely here. I was at conferences last week. Huge topics about, a lot of companies investing a lot of money in AI, but not really understanding the problem they want to solve, or where they want to, what they actually want to achieve with AI. I think a good question to kick off with is, what you see are the biggest challenges where businesses face when starting AI transformations, and really how can they overcome them?
That's a very good question, and it's one that I think I wrestle with a lot in my daily life. Now, I think that what happened is with ChatGPT, everyone got incredibly used with this very rich immersive experience, and in a way, the shock of having something that never happened before, like it happened with the smartphone, with the iPhone, and with other technologies before, that sort of wow moment. Everyone jumped on it, and I think they failed to understand the complexity. I think there is, and here we're talking specifically generative, which is where clearly AI became super hyped. Um, I think what I used to tell customers and people is, don't necessarily confuse LLMs, the models, with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is an application that is built on top of an LLM, where blood, tears, sweat, and efforts have gone into to make it what it is, right? And I the mental step that people need to understand is, effectively, the industry, the technology industry, Microsoft, OpenAI, Google, Meta, and others are bringing super advanced capabilities to the market. Um, but then it's up to the imagination of individuals or developers, of product makers, to figure out how to make these things work. And there is still a significant amount of effort. Now, that effort is lower than any technology we had before. The technology is more powerful than traditional machine learning. There is less need for advanced data science capabilities, and so in a way is democratizing, is opening up the market to more and more use cases. But there is still a step that needs to happen between just saying, oh, I'm using the latest GPT model, and actually making a product that works. So that's the first big part. And it's also where I think a lot of projects or companies fail. Like they get super enthusiastic about, oh, this thing is going to come and it's going to transform everything, and then they sort of expect this thing to work out of the box. It doesn't. They lose faith. They don't really invest to make it work and understand how it needs to work for them. So that's a big hype deflator normally. But if you think, like, we came up with this framework, we've done a piece of research, of market research, interviewing I don't remember how many thousand paper that is publicly accessible on the Microsoft website. We think about 5 core pillars for AI readiness. And so if we think about strategy, and maybe more so in an enterprise space where you have big organizations with potentially a lot of use cases, but applicable also to SMB. So we think about organizational readiness and culture at the end of the day. So how much is AI a priority for that organization? And what are the skills? What is the operating model? So it's basically, how organizationally are you thinking about adopting and making and extracting value from AI? Typically, what we see is the most advanced companies in a large environment appoint a chief AI officer, who is a delegate of the management team, to figure out and all the different use cases. So typically that's what we see. First thing is they will appoint a chief AI officer who's either a direct report the CEO, very close proxy to the C-suite. So that's normally the first thing. The second thing is, and that's the other big hype deflator I see is
you're deflating all the
I
hype.
think yeah is AI for business purposes. Now, all technologists or all technology enthusiasts will jump onto new things, will figure out what they do, and they will probably go off and solve problems that didn't need solving. And so, is how do you make sure that AI is one of the tools you use to drive your business agenda versus AI is a technology that I use to then chase to see whether I can find problems I can solve. So that's sort of like, how do you align AI to your business strategy and not the other way around? So that's really important. And that's normally, I think, the biggest sign when you see companies talking about, oh, we're doing AI, and you ask the question, okay, how many POCs have you done? We've done 100 POCs in the last year. Great. How many of them have gone to production? None. Normally, that's a good sign that AI is being led by technology enthusiasts and not by business leaders. So that's another big part. And look, from my experience, I've seen success. I think normally, if you think about a maturity model, typically it does start that way, and it is fine that it does start that way because it's a way of diffusing and getting people to start figuring it out. But normally we see a completely shift in gear when from being a bottom-up approach it becomes a top-down. When one of the at the top says, I'm gonna bet my function, my core process or processes on AI transformation, that's when you really start seeing the traction. So that's the business alignment is super important. And then we get into what is probably a little bit more AI centric, if you want. So the first two things are really just people and strategy and business strategy. The next ones are a little bit more AI driven. So we think about specific AI expertise, and here is there is a skills element of the more technical workforce, but I think it's more platforms and processes that allow you to repeat and to be repeatable and to be consistent in the way you deliver value. And if you think especially on the generative side, what's happening is we've never seen a technology evolve so quickly. It's sort of Moore's law on roughly half, if not a third, of the time scale. So sometimes we confuse people, and I mean, I put Microsoft into this bucket as well. We release so quickly that traditional architectural pattern of how you build solutions on top of this thing need to actually account for a supply from the technology sector that is so fast and so quick. So it's like, how can you quickly adapt to an ever evolving and ever improving set of capabilities that come from your supply chain? That's one of the core things that I think it's important to figure out. Then we think about governance, and I think governance, I would say, I would go on what we call responsible AI. So how do you think there is no way you're going to scale AI, especially if you think about building products that go in front of customers without having a robust governance on the responsible AI side. And in fact, I would say, I mean, the thing that I normally advise customers on is never too late to start with that. Think about, in the same way you think about security and privacy by design, responsible AI should be by design as well. At Microsoft, we had the wisdom, probably and partly kicked off by a little bit of a mishap in 2016. I don't know if you remember Ty, the chatbot that was published to Twitter that in 30 minutes sort of became racist. That was the instigator of thinking about responsible AI by design. And back in the days, we established an office of responsible AI. So not only we have we don't really have a chief AI officer, but we do have sort of a delegate of the CEO for AI adoption is our CTO. So think about the CTO of Microsoft being a proxy of a chief AI officer. But then in 2019, we also established a chief responsible AI officer who reports to our chief legal officer and who's sort of like owning the governance and the risk management, as well as working on policy making engagement with the governments. But that's really important, and I wouldn't say every organization need a chief AI, responsible AI officer. Normally, something that you start with a chief AI officer, and they also have delegation on the responsible AI. But if you really scale and if you reach a level of really big size, then yes, probably something to think about. And then the last part is your technology platform. Is like, how do you evolve your technology, especially data architecture? Because in reality, there's no, even in the LLM world, there's no AI that works, that create good experiences without good data. So how you bring data to AI becomes fundamental to success.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I mean, it's such a good overview. So think of your business heads rather than your technology heads for sure. You mentioned about chief of AI. Do you feel that there is a future opportunity in the market where even chief of AI sit on the board, and how do you see that kind of fitting into the market in the future?
We're starting to see that. In fact, I had a few conversations with a few customers exactly on that point. It is probably a nascent market or a nascent job in the job market. I believe I don't work that much with the US market, but I think it's starting to become a little bit more common in US based enterprises. It will pick up eventually. I think yes, it will become a thing in the same way as chief digital officer were a thing maybe 5-10 years ago. It's more common that we see those moving first and morphing and taking sort of the AI responsibility in front of the board. So either the CTO or the chief digital officer. But then yes, there is an element of I think there are probably two elements. One is like how, depending on the size of the organization and on the ambition of that organization itself, will a CTO or CDO job become too big to also be the chief AI, the head of AI? So that's one, simply like, is it too much for a person to handle?
Yeah.
The other thing is maybe giving a signal as to how AI needs to drive business value, and here is I've seen organizations that deliberately decided either to create more of a board. It's still a C-level, but just a way to balance and to make sure that AI, what we said, is not just a technology gig, but it's actually driving business value. Or decided to say, look, someone with a little bit of technology acumen, but not a technologist per se, just to break free of that sort of vicious loop of we're just building for tech's sake and we're not really driving business value. So I would say probably these are the two driver, but I am positive, and we'll see whether my forecast is accurate or not. But in the next couple of years, I think we're going to see more and more chief AI officer, AI transformation officer type of roles coming to the market.
Okay, so I can book you in for a podcast in 3 years, and you can say,
yes,
I told you so. Yeah. Okay, great. So I think another topic I really wanted to discuss is around data quality. So
yeah.
I mean, coming out of a conference I was at last week, AI for the rest of us, a big topic was, 90% of AI transformation is making sure your data is ready and clean. I don't know whether you agree with that statement, but certainly would love your opinion on how, how data quality plays a role.
Look, I think, as I said before, there's no good AI without good data. Now, I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift compared to traditional machine learning stories and techniques. Let's try to demystify it and to keep it fairly simple. At the end of the day, if the word of machine learning was clearly a data-led word, because very simply your AI models needed to be trained on top of your data. And so first, you bring the data in a place where it is accessible, you clean them up, then you bring a statistical model, train them, make them your own and specific, and then deploy them into an application that does personalization of what you see on a website versus churn prediction, fault prediction, whatever you want, whatever your business process is. But clearly, data was the first step for you to do in order to build AI. And also, if you want, in that word, the best AI company in the world were the companies with the lowest data acquisition cost: Google, Meta, Amazon, potentially, right? So the more data you have, the better AI you can create, because there is a clear interlink there. Now, with generative, we sort of broke free a little bit of that paradigm. Models became so generic that we think of them as platform in their own rights. And so logically, you no longer build AI on your data. AI is built on the entire internet, but you still need to bring your data. Whereas before you were bringing AI to your data, I think now I would say it's the opposite. You bring data to your AI. And so AI is a more foundational layer. But at the end of the day, if you think of models, large language models, frontier models as utilities, they will have certain price performance parameters and envelopes, and you either like them or choose another one. But once you've found one that you're happy with, the way in which you make these applications behave the way you want, and the way we build a contact center automation chatbot versus a invoice processing automation solution versus versus ChatGPT, is simply by bringing different pieces of information and different data that allow these models to reason and to behave differently. So I think there is a difference between machine learning and generative, but fundamentally the state and the behavior of your application and ultimately the success of your AI use case depend on access to data and on the quality of data. Now, what is and what is good practice in a machine learning versus in a generative world maybe slightly different, but yeah, fundamentally there is no escape. And I think if anything, what we are seeing by getting hands-on, trying to apply generative to your data will only exacerbate and expose even more deficiencies. I can tell without mentioning too many things, an anecdote. I remember we're building a chatbot to help navigate in a more seamless way on top of a website around commercial offerings of a given company. And I remember, so we are testing, the application is ready, we're doing internal testing with this customer, and we found out, well, we got feedback like, oh, this response is actually wrong. You're picking up something from a couple of years ago. We no longer have that offer. Look into it. And we, in that case, we are using an LLM, a foundation model, and we are injecting on top of it the data of the website of that company. Now we go and look at it, and in a page remote on their website, so publicly available to everyone, there is still the old offer available. They never cleaned it up. Now the thing is, how many people will go down 25 menus to actually find that page? Probably not many. But then the moment you bring a technology to the front of your page that is so powerful and so capable, it got exposed. And so, was it an AI issue? No, it was actually a data quality problem. And we find them every time you start a project. You will start to find either data deficiencies, data quality. I mean, the other big thing is data deficiencies. Sometimes you try to replicate human processes to either speed them up or fully automate them, and you're like, okay, what are the data that help this AI system perform the human task? And they're like, oh yeah, but human go to training, and it's like, well, we need to have a little bit more explicit knowledge to make this system work. So yeah, there is no escape, and I think we're gonna see an acceleration in data management, data quality improvement, data platform evolution projects, just because companies will start to find these bottlenecks in their AI acceleration and value realization.
Amazing. Oh, sorry, I've just kicked my puppy. She's determined to get on. Look, hello. Maggie,
Hello.
welcome to the podcast. Look. She's a celebrity at heart, I'm sure. So awesome. Thank you very much for that overview. I think, as I say, such a big topic around data quality that was coming out of last week's conference for sure. I think one that's really interesting is for the smaller businesses, you know, the SMBs. I mean, how can they compete in the AI space with limited resource?
That's a very interesting topic, and I mean, if we go back to what we said before, um, we are not yet at the point where you can deploy any AI solution without capital, be it human capital, be it financial capital. So I think it depends a little bit on what these SMBs want to do, in what sector they play. So let's think about a traditional SMB, small manufacturing, small retail company, not a software business at heart. They will probably be in what I think McKinsey have this concept. McKinsey call it taker, shaper, and maker, something like that, if I remember correctly. So taker is, you're gonna simply buy AI in the same way as you buy digital solutions. So for every one of your processes, as much as you buy a SaaS-based solution today, the supply chain is gonna inject somehow AI into those processes. Just take them. That's the easiest way. Now, in a world like that, your differentiation probably doesn't come from AI systems or from technology, because you're simply happy to be on the same level ground as your competitors, and you have something else. You may do physical products, whatever it may be. So that's the first approach. Just like look out. And maybe here is one thing that it might be interesting for those SMBs. I would say, rely on the supply chain, but don't necessarily think that the right setup for you is the same of the pre-AI era. So you may have an opportunity to reconsider how your systems are organized, and maybe you merge some, maybe you split others. But it's like, what is the best setup for the AI era? Because some processes are going to be fundamentally rewired, but fundamentally buy from the industry, from the supply chain. The second one is the shaper. So fundamentally you build on top of what the technology industry is providing, and you build your own IP on top of these AI models. Now here probably I'm thinking about software companies or more technology intensive companies, or companies who decide that digital solutions embedded in their products become the next engine for growth. I think there is important to be laser focused. Don't boil the ocean. Don't do too many use case, one, two, a few core. And I expect this company probably to be building for their top line rather than for their bottom line. They will still buy from the supply chain for their bottom line improvement, for internal productivity. But it's like, how does your product become AI native? How do you create this new revenue stream? So that's probably a second phase. And in the service industry, companies providing advisory, consulting, delivery services clearly build an AI practice, start to build these skills. So again, focus, good talent. I think here is where maybe SMBs can leverage the eagerness of good talent to get stuff done. Yes, you may not have the brand visibility of a Microsoft or a Google, but the excitement of look, you're gonna work close to the top of the organization, because if that's the one product we're gonna build, for sure the CEO of an SMB is gonna be on it, and you're a young talented developer coming out of uni. The excitement of saying I got it done, I actually shipped it and I shipped it quickly, that's a value that SMB can land, I think, as a differentiator for talent attraction, and it's not to be discounted. And then the last one is the last one is the maker, is basically the new industry of AI producers. Now, do we qualify them as SMBs? The OpenAI of this world, the Mistral of this world, I think it's more a startup with an incredible capital intensity, but for sure there is space. So as well as if you have that level of depth from a research perspective, there is effectively a new market that has been created on model makers. So that's the other way to think about it.
Interesting topics there for sure, especially on the obviously for me an interest is talent. You're coming from a recruitment perspective. I would say though that the talent is quite scarce actually, with real hands-on transformation experience. And that's just quite simply because not many companies have really kind of gone on that AI transformation journey. Is there any advice you can give to, businesses that are maybe, looking to attract the best talent? Any kind of maybe final thoughts on AI in general? I think would be great.
Yeah, I think on the talent side, what we're seeing is we're seeing the convergence of two domains fundamentally, especially with generative. So historically, machine learning was a data science domain, and then application development, digital was a software engineering domain. And you may have built digital solution with machine learning model embedded, but fundamentally the two teams were completely separated, working on two separate set of skills, and eventually just coming together to integrate their own IPs. The new word is properly merged. So we say at Microsoft, the future is every developer is going to be an AI developer, in the sense that every application is going to have AI embedded or is going to become AI native. And so it is true that there are not that many people who actually shipped scaled solution. And so how do you assess skills? But I think having this in mind, and probably starting from the developers and introducing a little bit of new frameworks, new skills, is the way to go, and is probably the more successful way to go. I mean, the data scientist, with no offense to the data scientists, but we do see developers, because developers don't come from these words, sort of like question a little bit less and just get stuff done. It's enough that it works. We don't need to get, whereas data scientists at the moment tend to be a little bit more theoretical and academic around, oh, but the best LLM or whatever. So yeah, just get it done. Start. There is also a sort of a learning curve, I would say. Start with simple use cases where fundamentally you just consume models via an API in a simple process, internal. Then from there evolve to richer experiences, ChatGPT like, where you start building on traditional frameworks for generative AI, and then move to customer facing, because that's the most complex and risky solutions you can build. So I think we're going to see new roles, and these new roles combining different domains, and a lot of skilling on the job. We do see, and I think again it was there is a reference from McKinsey saying, well, in digital, for every dollar you spent on technology, you needed to spend $1 in skilling and change. In the AI world, for every dollar you spend on technology is $3 on change and skilling. So that's sort of the skills gap that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's not insurmountable, and I think there is still a positive ROI even in investing in that ways. But it's one of the things to keep in mind if you really want to bet on AI in the future.
For sure. I think there's some very, very valid points there for sure. Certainly, I think we had this conversation before. Where does AI sit? Does it sit on the data science area? Does it sit on the engineering side? So I think there might be some difference of opinions, of course, but that's technology for us, right? It wouldn't be fun without that. So. But Luca, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I definitely owe you a few beers, or maybe if I can persuade my bosses to maybe fly us into Silverstone, we'll get the full VIP treatment. F1, love it. So
back
you never
to the
know.
aerospace engineering days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it all started.
But look, thank you so much, Luca, and we'll obviously keep in touch. But thanks again.
Thanks a lot for having me, Jonathan.
Thanks for listening to another episode of AI Insights with me, Jonathan Blabber, heading up our AI recruitment practice at Eden Smith. Now, if you like what you've heard today and thinking, right, how ready is my business for AI transformation? Eden Smith have partnered with the Data Practice Group to bring you a personalized and complementary AI readiness and benchmarking report. It's a very, very short survey, 15 minutes, but these will really dig into your business, understand where you are and where you are against your competition. So if you'd like to find out more, please visit our website, find me on LinkedIn, or email me at jonathan.blabber@edensmith.co.uk. Thanks again for listening.